Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Pert.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today? Good. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things we're talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Poet. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. He'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. They'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have
time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have
time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand the truth.
Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? We've made it to Friday, end of the week. Here we go. Today is the 12th. No, excuse me. Today is the 13th. Friday the 13th. Dun 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 dun. Friday the 13th, our moon sign is Taurus, which means it's an earth sign. Our sun sign is Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, so we've got fire and earth. Now, fire and earth can work well together. If you want to make some pottery, you take the pottery, the clay, and you put it in the fire, and it makes it into whatever you're going to make. So they work well together in that regards. However, fire can melt earth if it gets too hot. Or, if there's a lot of earth and not enough fire, the earth could snuff out the fire. If you think of the ideas, the words, the key words with these two as ideas and practicality, kind of gives a different idea of what you're doing. Because you've got the ideas, the fire of Sagittarius, and you've got the earth or the practicality of the Taurus. You put two together and find a practical way to make use of that fire, bring those ideas down into earth. That's what we're looking for here. This afternoon, or actually in about a couple hours from now, we do have a nice, good, positive energy between the sign here, Pluto, and the moon sign. Pluto is deep transformation and our practicality, the way we use energy. So about 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. That aspect goes into play. We'll see how it works itself out, but that's what we have. Nice trine between Pluto, deep transformation, and Taurus the bull, practical use of our energy. All right, moving from there to our moon phase for today, 87% of the way there. Quickly making our way up to that full moon where we'll be next week. The Mayan Oracle, we are at a 5-tone day. Here is our position in the wave spell right here. The yellow seed is the name for today. So today is the overtone seed guided by the human. The supporting cast members, the like-minded energy is vision, which is the eagle. Timelessness is the challenge, that's the wizard. And the hidden power, or the occult kin, is the earth, which is all about synchronicity and navigation. The phrase for today is, I empower in order to target, commanding awareness. I seal the input of flowering with the overtone, tone of radiance. I am guided by the power of free will. We're at space weather. Our solar wind is currently at 329.3 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index is in the quiet range. However, look at our coronal hole here. We've got what's looking like a nice, interesting looking shape forming there. It's like a triangle with a little tip at the top here. Definitely very much triangular-like. Unless, of course, I'm just seeing things, so maybe I am, and you can confirm that. But it looks like some sort of triangle-like thing to me. And, of course, solar wind's going to be blowing this way over the course of the next week, coming from this large hole. Will it hit the Earth? We'll find out at that time. M-class flare possibility, the same as it was yesterday at 30%. X-class, same, 5%. Geomagnetic storm activity has picked up, though. We're 60%, 50 to 60% in the high latitudes. Mid latitudes are 20%, 40% active in the mid latitudes there. All right, let's check out what's going on with Suspicious Observers report for today.
Good morning, folks. We're beginning today with a joint operation from NASA, ASI, USGS, and JPL Caltech. We're flying low over Saturn's moon Titan. Height of the features have been exaggerated a bit in their animation to make it easier for us to see. You can also see where they've plotted the liquid. Now, speaking of moons in our solar system and liquid, let's stick with water actually. Chapter 1, we investigated the water volcanism on Encinitas, along with the water found on about a dozen other moons of our gas giants, including Europa. But now we're getting news that Europa has geyser-like water chutes as well. Hubble detected them near the South Pole. We've long thought that certain radio emissions detected at our planet were from distant galaxies. Turns out, we're likely measuring solar flares from nearby stars. That is a good read. Arctic ice having some late-year struggles returning. We see this type of thing every year at this time when we go sideways a bit compared to our normal ice gain up north at this time of year, getting to the low side of average now. RSOE alert map, meteors big enough to make booms frighten folks in the southwest U.S. We have major severe weather hitting the Canary Islands yesterday, leaving a good deal of the island beneath the surge. Coming south, I'm hoping my focus on the South American accumulation so far this month is becoming clear to you. These accumulations don't happen overnight, and we should have all seen this coming. Last weather note is some heavy, heavy rain coming to northern Australia. Using the Antarctic Daisy for noctilucent clouds to kick us into space weather today, we're seeing slight rises in neutrons and muons, but the overall cosmic ray level's still normal. Solar wind speed, however, way under 300 kilometers per second. That's a major slow, and not the first solar wind flux failure noticed lately. Please hold that thought just a moment. Let's diagnose yesterday's CMEs. We said we'd likely get a glancing blow, and I stick by that today. There are clear halo aspects to both eruptions, and after watching the CMEs come off the Earth-facing disk on SDO, that's just about all the confirmation we need. But Stereo A with Earth off to the left does help gain insight into the equatorial plasma coming our way. NOAA's Enlil spiral showing a small impact to occur on Sunday. Does appear NASA's Enlil spiral shows a slightly earlier impact. Geomagnetic storms may occur, but the grids are not in jeopardy. Solar flaring in mid-sea range with the CMEs popping. Filament eruptions are popping at least half of those flares as the sunspots are magnetically simple. Big incomer up north lacks the central vorticity I'd hoped for, and the south technically retains gamma complexity. Slight chance of larger flaring there. Coronal hole power is diminishing only slowly. They've never put back the missing images of that wild coronal field movement. Does seem we have small openings facing Earth today. We never got the watch to major levels. We're still middle of the road. Okay, now back to that solar wind flux fail I asked you to keep in mind. I added a public audio cast last night to the website. It's under premium, but everyone can watch. Go to Fly on the Wall and click the upload from last night. This is my brief notes and context for the latest solar discussion. World's top experts, saying what all of us here have been observing for all this time. Weaker everything on the sun. And below the context in my notes, I went ahead and embedded the full AGU video. Observers will be astounded at how well you already understand this stuff. This is the top recommendation today. Shots of our star to close, eyes open. No fear, it's 6:15 a.m. Eastern Time, and that's the news. Be safe, everyone.
All right. Excellent. Okay, today is Friday the 13th. Oh no, Friday the 13th. Day of superstition? Well, that's what some people say. But is that necessarily the case? I'm going to show you a piece here in a few moments, but before I do, I want to give a little synopsis on Friday the 13th, more specifically the number 13. You see, I believe that the secrets of the universe are hidden behind the number 13, and that is the reason why that we are told not to look there. The word 13 is a number that we are told is a number we are supposed to be afraid of. It's part of the occult. But the word occult itself simply means that which is hidden. Doesn't have any meaning, doesn't mean good, doesn't mean bad. It means that which is hidden. So the number 13 is a number behind which there is a lot of information that is hidden. Okay? In the tarot cards, the tarot card of death gives us one part of the clue, because it's the card that represents number 13. However, it's not about a physical death. It's about a transition from one form to another, showing us that life continues on. The zodiac itself there are, if we look at the zodiac as it is now, we've got 12 signs. In the center, we have a 13th position. If we look at Jesus and his role with the apostles, there was Jesus and the 12 apostles. There was 13. The 13th sign of the zodiac that we've heard about is this hidden one called Ophiuchus. There's a lot of important wisdom behind 13. You have the Mayan calendar, and you have the 13, which continues to revolve within that cycle. So there's a lot of wisdom, and if we learn to look past what is hidden about it, we find out there's nothing to be afraid of, but there's a lot of information to be gained. Now, over the course of the years, there have certainly been a lot of events that have been attached to the idea of Friday the 13th, all to bring in ideas and instill the ideas that you need to be afraid. Well, you don't need to be afraid just because certain events happen on certain days, because remember, there's always those who are out there trying to cause fear and looking into ways that cause the most fear, and sometimes picking certain days of the week or certain times of the year or seasons. These are ways in which you instill the fear by creating an event in those particular days. You're familiar with how that works. It happens all the time. In the United States of America, they do a lot of false flag events. So now we know every time 9/11 comes around, we think of that as a day there is a lot of fear attached to it. It has deeper meanings to it. So same thing with Friday the 13th. We can look at all the scary things that happened on that day. We could say that we're supposed to be afraid of number 13, but if you really look at 13, you find out there's a lot of wisdom to be gained there, and much is hidden behind it. And if you look into the history of those who have said not to look at 13, not to look at the occult things, you'll find out that they are still themselves looking into the very topics they're telling you not to, because they understand there's the wisdom. So it's do as I do as I say, not as I do. That's kind of their whole philosophy. So that's a little rundown. You don't need to be afraid of 13 no matter what happened. Now, this piece I'm going to play here has to do with the Knights Templar, and it is one of the stories we hear as a reason why Friday the 13th is Friday the 13th, because many of them were persecuted and killed on that particular day. Again, this doesn't mean that that's what Friday the 13th is all about. It was just a date that was assigned to this event, to the idea that's covering up a number which has a lot of secrets hidden behind it. All right, so let's get to the video here. It's called Knights Templar. This is part 5 of a really good series. This is the trial aspect of it here. That applies to what we're talking about today.
In this video, we'll examine the course of the trial of the Templars. In part 4, we already looked at why the charges against the Templars were false. However, Philip IV's interrogators were not interested in the evidence and ignored the Templars when they insisted on their innocence. Instead, they tortured them until they either confessed or died from torture. An anonymous medieval writer tells us that those whom the investigators have killed in torture, they secretly bury in the stable or in the garden, out of fear that such horrible and savage deeds should reach royal ears, since they tell the king that the aforesaid brothers did not confess their crimes by violence, but by their own accord. Historians have long noted that Philip's interrogators were lying to the king about exactly how the inquiries were conducted. They told Philip that the Templars were voluntarily confessing, not under the pain of torture. To what extent Philip understood what was actually going on is debatable. Some scholars believe that Philip earnestly believed the charges. Others are convinced that he knew well that the trial was a sham. In November 1309, Pont de Gizy, commander of Payan, testified before papal commissioners about his experience at the hands of the French administration. He was asked whether he had ever been tortured, and he replied that he had. 3 months before his confession, made in the presence of the Lord Bishop of Paris, his hands tied behind his back so tightly that the blood ran down to his fingernails, in a certain pit, in which he could only take 1 pace, protesting and saying that if he was put to the torture again, he would deny everything that he had said now and say whatever he was told to say. For a short time, he had been prepared to have his head cut off, or to suffer fire or boiling for the honor of the said order. But now that he had suffered imprisonment for the past 2 years, he was not able to bear such long tortures as he had already been in. So the Templars confessed because of fear of torture and to make the torture stop. Pope Clement V was enraged when Philip had the Templars arrested without his approval. However, the dawn of the 14th century was a time of much less power for the Pope than the early 13th century. Clement, under pressure from the French king, authorized the arrest and investigation of the Templars, sending a letter to all the kings of Christendom, ordering them to carry out the trial. Most Christian monarchs still looked favorably on the Templars, and so did not comply with the Pope's demand, either partially or at all. Torture occurred virtually nowhere outside France, and most of the Templars were incorporated into new military orders, especially in Spain, where the Templars were so numerous. It is noteworthy that outside of France, none of the brothers admitted to the charges. Pope Clement finally demanded that the case in France be turned over to the church authorities. It was at this point that Jacques de Molay and other high-ranking Templars recanted their forced confessions. Philip now began a propaganda campaign in an effort to sway public opinion against the Templars. He staged a meeting of church scholars in France who, no surprise, came back with the verdict that Philip was right to have the Templars arrested. Philip then organized a judicial body in Vienna to look over the case between 1309 and 1310. It was February of 1310 when 15 brothers came forward, prepared to defend the order. This number quickly swelled to something like 500 Templars, now committed to recanting their forced confessions and arguing for the order's orthodoxy. These brothers were declared relapsed heretics, and they were executed by burning at the stake, all of them loudly proclaiming their order's innocence, even while they died. People watching these executions were deeply impressed by the piety and courage of these brothers. Public opinion now swung sharply in favor of the Templars, much to Philip's ire. Despite all of Philip's pressure, the representatives of the Pope, along with other high-ranking individuals in France, continued to insist that the Templars had not been proved guilty. Impatient and angry, Philip called a council in Lyon in 1312, showing up with his army to make the point that he would not be defied in this matter. Under extreme pressure, the papal commission bent to Philip and declared, amazingly, that although the order had not been proven guilty, it had been so defamed that it must be dissolved. Philip's army would not allow anyone present at the council, including nobles and clergymen, most of whom were sympathetic to the Templars, to debate the matter further. It was declared that those Templars who confessed and renounced their order would be released and allowed to join other orders. Those who refused to recant would be tried as lapsed heretics. This is where the Templar leadership showed incredible courage. Jacques de Molay, the master of the order, and other Templar commanders, Geoffrey de Charnay, Geoffrey de Gonville, and Hugh Piron, insisted on defending the order. Under threats of violence and death, they held their ground. They were condemned to life in prison, but Jacques de Molay and Geoffrey de Gonville would not go quietly to their sentences. They loudly renounced the proceedings as unjust, vocally criticizing the king and his administration, as well as the Pope. On March 18th, 1314, Jacques and Geoffrey, having tested the mercy of their captors to the breaking point, were condemned to burn as heretics. It seems likely that Philip had hoped to avoid executing the elite leadership of the Templars, since he could have used the sentences of life imprisonment as propaganda, meant to portray him as a merciful ruler. But Jacques and Geoffrey would have none of it. The execution of Jacques de Molay and Geoffrey de Gonville was a highly charged event. Here, one of Philip's supporters records the scene, and even he can't bring himself to vilify the Templar masters. The master contradicted the cardinal, and said to him that he believed in our Lord, and that there was no more loyal and better Christian than he was. He did not know anything in the order which did not originate in good and in the Christian law. He would not abandon his order. He would suffer death there for God's sake, and for justice, and for right. No one present was so hard-hearted that they did not cross themselves many times when they heard him speak about his order like this. Seeing the fire ready, the master took off his clothes. I say what I saw. He stood there in just his shirt, happily and in good spirits. He did not tremble, no matter how they dragged and prodded at him. They took hold of him to tie him to the stake. He agreed to this, happy and rejoicing. They tied his hands with a cord, but first he said to them, "Sirs, at least let me join my hands together for a little while, and make my prayer to God. For now is the time and the season to pray. I see here my judgment, the place where I must die in a short time hence. God knows that my death is wrong and a sin. So in short time, evil things will befall those who have condemned us to death. God will avenge our death. Sirs," he said, "you should know without any argument that all those who have acted against us will suffer for what they have done to us. I wish to die in this belief. See here my faith, and I beg you to turn my face towards the church of Our Lady, from whom our Lord was born." His request was met. He died like this, and met his death so sweetly that everyone was amazed. As Philip feared, the death of the Templar leaders became martyrdoms. Public opinion swelled in favor of the murdered Jacques de Molay and Geoffrey de Gonville, who became renowned everywhere. King Philip IV of France had succeeded in dissolving the Templars, but his propaganda campaign had failed utterly. Even his own chroniclers, as we have seen, recorded the executions with positive portrayal of the Templars. It's impossible not to admire the courage of these two Templar leaders, who could have ended their lives under fairly comfortable conditions in house arrest. Instead, they chose to be burned alive in defiance of the King of France. Incidentally, Jacques' prophecy at the stake proved true. That same year, Philip suffered a severe head injury during a hunting accident, which left him in agony for weeks. He finally died in incredible pain. Like so many kings, his vows to go on crusade left unfulfilled.
Alright, pretty fascinating, huh? So you could see that through the use of propaganda and the way in which the trial was done, corruption has been going on for a long time. Same deal. And what's even scary about it is that the way in which this administration and the ones before it have been using propaganda, it's very much similar in the way in which they did back then. So some things don't change. Corrupt and evil people continue to pass on their corrupt evil ways to more corrupt evil people. It just takes good people to stand up against it, because good wins over evil all the time. Alright, UFO news is up next. Stay tuned.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
Alright, Dirk, thank you very much. Today I have 5 stories. First story comes to us from, this is over Mexico. It was on the TV news. We got a couple of objects here that were spotted. UFO fleet seen over Mexico in December 2013. Okay, now you can see a lot of them. That's pretty intense. Imagine looking up and seeing that. The fleet of glowing orbs was seen this week in Mexico coming from the Pacific Ocean, and it made it on primetime TV. Okay, there they are. Pretty amazing. What do we got there? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, at least. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Alright, next. Unknown lights hovering over Boston, Massachusetts. This is on the 10th. Bright eye objects hovering in the night sky above Boston. Taken on Tuesday. Okay. There we go. There's those lights right there. Not quite certain what they are, but that's what people have seen up there. Okay, moving on from there. Next, we're going to go to Arizona. This was on the 11th. New video footage of multiple bright lights recorded in the night sky above Arizona City in Arizona on the 11th. The witness said driving up the street spotted 2 lights near Venus. There they are right there. They disappeared, then saw 2 more in the southeastern part of the sky. They disappeared as well. Saw another one alone in the southwestern part of the sky. Throughout a period of 45 minutes, they would appear in random parts of the sky and would disappear. Okay. Let's go on to the next one here. Encinitas, California. Strange objects flying caught in tape over Encinitas. New footage of a bright stationary objects hovering in the sky above Encinitas. This one was filmed on the 11th. Witness reported, my wife and I noticed this last night over Encinitas. It was around 8 p.m. We were walking to dinner. We first noticed the object because we were trying to find stars to look at. My first instinct was this has to be a normal commercial jet airliner. After about 10 seconds, that quickly changed and I grabbed my camera phone. The object was entirely stationary for at least 20 minutes. We stood there for about 10 looking at it and spent another 10 walking to dinner. The object was still in the sky when we walked to the restaurant, although I can't confirm if it moved or not since my field of view changed. So much from the walking. The object appeared circular and had 3 roaring lights that were moving rather quickly. The lights were magenta. Alright, there's our UFO in question. Very interesting the way it is moving around. Okay, now let's move on to there one more. Remember the other day, read the report about Obama and put a new guy in the office who specializes in how to get past the Constitution or get over on the Constitution without congressional authority. Well, apparently this guy has talked about UFOs as well. It says, for all of you who hope the U.S. government will lift the veil on its alleged stockpile of evidence that Earth is being visited by extraterrestrials, take heart. This week, former Clinton Chief of Staff and UFO advocate John Podesta was named as President Obama's newest advisor. Podesta, 64, has once more publicly urged the U.S. government to release any UFO files that could help scientists determine the real nature of the phenomenon. Podesta's stance on UFOs can be seen in the following video clip from 2009 James Fox film, I Know What I Saw. Podesta spoke in a 2001 news conference at the National Press Club in Washington, where he called the U.S. government to declassify records that are more than 25 years old. Let's listen to what he has to say here.
Former Chief of Staff John Podesta. Podesta, also an advisor to President Obama, spoke at a 2002 press conference organized by the Coalition for Freedom of Information.
I think it's time to open the books on questions that have remained in the dark, on the question of government investigations of UFOs. It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there. We ought to do it really because it's right. We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle the truth. And we ought to do it because it's the law.
All right. Well, we'll see how this plays out with this guy in there. Seems like he is interested in the subject, but remember, we have Project Bluebeam, which has been put out there as a hoax that would be played upon the American people. We have the story of a fake alien invasion, and now we have the mainstream media continuing to talk about things like rogue planets coming into our solar system and places where there could be life in the universe are becoming more abundant. So all of these things lend to some sort of story they're about to tell us. Because when's the last time you were able to turn on the television to any mainstream station and found out that they were telling you exactly what you needed to know because it was important news? When was the last time? Never. Exactly. Their job is not to make sure that you have the most important information. It's to use propaganda, and there are bills out there that support this. It's to use propaganda to be able to tell you a story so that you'll believe what's going on. That's how it works. I didn't write the book. I know a lot of times you try to explain to others how the media works. And there are those who say that the media would tell you the truth, and that's the way that they operate. They don't know how the media works. They don't understand all of the corporate interests that go in. Unfortunately, they don't. And that is why so many people are fooled. But the information is readily available. 2013, we have no shortage of information telling us about how all of the news media has faked their stories, how they've lied to the public, and how they are all working together with the same corporate interests that are pushing them forward, because they are there nothing more than to help move the agenda of the administration forward. That's it. So we'll see where this guy, John Podesta, is going to go in all of this, if he's going to end up being a good guy or if he is just going to help Obama to violate the Constitution more than he already has. Time will tell, but I'm sure we're going to find out soon enough. That's UFO news. I'll be back momentarily. I've got one story, and then we're going to get into an interview with Stephen Bassett, so stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of them.
How about if I turn the microphone on? Much easier. Okay, continuing on. So the first thing I want to address, then we're going to go into this interview, we're going to deal with Mandela for a moment. Now, we know about the memorial service. We know about the way in which Obama was behaving and the selfie and all of the other stuff. Okay, we've seen it plenty of times. But one question that has come up in forums with people who have been paying attention is, didn't Mandela die a while ago? And that's been a good question. Well, yeah, he did. He didn't just die. Nelson Mandela family finally gives up. Charade admits Mandela's dead. The Nelson Mandela family has finally given up their charade and admitted that Nelson Mandela is dead by announcing today that the former leader of South Africa is no longer with us. The charade began in June 2013, and the Guardian Express has maintained Mandela has been deceased since. We were informed of his passing in June via one of our reporters embedded in South Africa. That reporter had received a text message from a close friend who works for the South African news, which stated that Mandela had died the night prior. Since June, the Guardian Express has come under attack, first from a denial of service attack, which shut down the site on and off for 3 days, and we published the news that Mandela had died. Denial of service attack was traced back to South Africa. The Guardian Express also attacked by people denying that Nelson Mandela family was carrying on the charade. However, we stood by and continued to stand by our account that Mandela was declared permanently brain dead with total organ failure in June of 2013. Now today, the family has finally decided to give up their charade. We sent an additional reporter to South Africa who returned with an auto recording of 2 top government officials confirming the fact that Mandela was totally brain dead and declared so on June 11th. However, his family refused to turn off life support machines hooked up to his body, thus the family could keep him artificially alive. The motive? To settle a huge lawsuit against Mandela's estate? Well, okay, so what gives? He's been dead in June, yet they're playing this out for those who don't understand as if he just died. Again, one of these things that don't know what the purpose is, just something that we should all be aware of. It's not like a new thing. He didn't just pass on now. All right. Now, let me show you this site here. This site is called Paradigm Research Group. This is the home site of Stephen Bassett. Stephen Bassett is a leading advocate for ending the truth embargo. The truth embargo is basically the efforts made by government and related agencies to keep the information about the UFO or the alien extraterrestrial phenomena quiet. And so Stephen Bassett has been out there for many, many years. This is his site. You've heard him on the show. You've undoubtedly seen things he's been involved with. He was the one who put together the citizen hearing. And so we just spoke on Saturday. I've got an interview here. I'm going to play about 20 minutes or so. The full interview will be available so you can listen to the whole thing. It's close to 50 minutes in length. And he gets into the discussion of what happened since they had that the hearing. Okay, so let's jump over to this. Let's listen to what Stephen Bassett has to say. Here we go. This is Josh Pote with First Contact Radio. I'm here with Stephen Bassett. He's here this time to give us some updates on what's going on. Last time we spoke with him was after the citizen hearing. So, Stephen, welcome back to First Contact Radio. How are you today, and what's going on in the world of the truth embargo?
Well, it's good to be with you, Josh, as always. As you said, the last time we spoke, we talked about the citizen hearing on disclosure in Washington at the National Press Club, which is, the info on that is at citizenhearing.org. That's singular, citizenhearing.org. We accomplished the principal goal, which is to get this done and get it filmed. We've got 30 hours of it on high definition film, and we're editing that now into a 10 DVD set. And we webcast it to the world so people in media and on the Hill, Capitol Hill, could watch it, even though they could not come and attend, right? Can't be associated with the issue and all that. So we gave it some exposure there, got some reasonably good media coverage, quite a few articles. So what's going to happen next is we're going to take that citizen hearing on disclosure to Capitol Hill. And it's a pretty simple maneuver. The concept is this, that the reason that there have not been hearings on the ET issue since '68, when there was a one-day event. I don't know if it was all day, but it was no more than a day. I think there were 5 people that testified, and some papers were submitted. The people that testified were quite serious about the issue. I do not think the hearing was serious. I think it was part of a shutdown process that was underway, where the government was trying to get out from under the public pressure on the issue. So they held a hearing, let some people come in so they could say they'd done that. Shortly after that, the Condon report was issued, and saying that there's nothing to this. They used the Condon report to shut down Blue Book, saying, okay, that's it, we don't need to study this anymore. And then at the same time, they were closing down NICAP. They had thrown Keogh out, and there were actually some CIA people on the board, and they essentially took over NICAP, shut down all its operations, kept all the money for themselves, and NICAP disappeared. So this was their attempt to get out from under the issue in '68, '69. It worked for about 9 years or so. Things really cooled in terms of people pounding on the government's door. And then that started to change dramatically in 1978 when Jesse Marcel Sr. interviewed with Stanton Friedman. And it's been pretty much all downhill for the truth embargo since. So what's the point here? The point is that since 1968, the evidence is amassed. The witnesses have come forward. Books have been written. Sightings have taken place. The Internet has come into creation. Massive amount of information is being dispersed. Awareness of the subject is almost universal. And yet the Congress hasn't held hearings. And the reason is quite simple. The people inside the government that are in the know on this subject and even managing this subject are fully aware that if the kinds of witnesses that are currently available were to testify on the Hill to Senate or House committees at length, not some show thing where just a couple people show up, the truth embargo would not survive it. These hearings would be extensively covered. There'd be a lot of cameras in the room. The media would be covering it intensely, and what they would see happen is what we demonstrated would happen with the citizen hearing on disclosure in D.C. We had 40 witnesses, strong witnesses, 10 countries, testified in 20 sessions, 21.5-hour sessions over 5 days, 30 hours, to 6 former members of Congress, 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and a Libertarian, 5 Congress people, and 1 senator, who were relatively neutral on the subject, and they virtually were blown away by the testimony, as is to be expected. And they showed that transition on camera, quite emphatically. It's never been done before. It was the highest concentration of evidence ever presented one time, one place. And we have it all on film. So, what we intend to do is to essentially launch the most intensive, comprehensive effort to get hearings in Congress ever. And if we get them, and I think we will, the same witnesses, and very likely others, equally important, that were not at the citizen hearing, but will be more than happy to testify on the Hill to Congress, will present to real congressional committees, some cases as many as 20 members per committee, and that will end the truth embargo.
Okay.
So that's what's coming. Now, how are we going to do it? It's actually not complicated, and the public can play a critical role. In early January, depending upon it's based on when we complete the editing, this huge editing project, which we are raising funds for at citizenhearing.org. There's a funding campaign there you can check out. We're trying to raise the money to get this done quickly, so we get, we need to get more editors on this. When that's done, we will deliver 535 sets of the DVDs to the entire House and Senate, which will be about 5,350 discs. That will be sent on a particular day, and it will take about 7 days for those DVDs to arrive in those offices, which contain about 1,000 staffers. So you have 1,000 staffers with 1,000 computers, with 1,000 DVD players, and they're about to get 5,350 DVDs of an unprecedented event showing former colleagues of theirs listening to key testimony on the ET issue, testimony that essentially confirms the ET presence. The DVDs will be accompanied by a letter signed by many, many witnesses requesting that they meet with PRG, Paradigm Research Group's lobbyist, me, to discuss the content of the DVDs they just got, and also calling for hearings immediately.
Okay.
So that'll be on its way, and there will be a lot of publicity leading up to that, so that the Congress is going to know those DVDs are coming. But while they're in transit, I'm going to go on national radio and television and ask every American who's listening to take a couple of minutes, just a couple of minutes of their time, and send a tweet, and of course we will provide all the Twitter addresses, or an email, and it's easy to get this information, and we'll set up the links for that, to their 2 senators and a congressperson. It's 3 representatives that represent them in Congress, requesting that they meet with PRG's lobbyists, and also that they hold hearings. And we'll ask them to do it in a very concentrated time frame, which will be like the days leading up to the arrival of those DVDs and the days after. So we hope to generate thousands of tweets. It's called a tweet storm, by the way, and a lot of emails, which usually using email forms. They don't give out email addresses much anymore. You have to go to their site, and you have to send it in on their email forms, which is fine. It's the same deal. They'll be getting all these in numbers large enough that they can't ignore them, and then the DVDs will arrive. And
Sounds great.
We're going to do everything we can to make sure these staffers start looking at these DVDs. And then shortly after that, I'll be knocking on their door.
Okay.
You know who we're going to approach first. We're just going to start going down the list to get meetings. Not too long after that, we will be sending letters to the key committee chairs, and these letters are going to be signed by former members of Congress and maybe some other political notables, requesting that the chairs convene the meetings. And we're doing this while we're trying to get members of the committees to make a decision to approach the chairpersons and request that these hearings take place. Then I will publish a list of all of the offices that are declining to meet, and we'll go back to the public and say, look, now we want you to contact all of these offices, whether they're your representative or not, tweet and email them, and basically politely request that they reconsider their decision to not meet on this subject. Meanwhile, there will be press, releases being sent out. So there's not going to be too many people, I think, in the country that won't know within, say, 30 days of the launch of this, plus the pre-publicity, that Congress is being significantly, how would you say, approached? Challenged, that's a good word. Significantly challenged to finally hold hearings for a large number of military agency political witnesses, many of which had substantial security clearances and have profound evidence.
That's a very well thought out plan.
Well, yeah, I've been working on it for about 16 years, so yeah, probably well thought out by now.
Yeah, it's well organized and very well thought out, and so good job on that.
Yeah, it is really, we need funding. I mean, we were trying to raise funding at paradigmresearchgroup.org. There's a very clear link to the funding modalities there, both WePay and PayPal, so that we have the funds for me to operate extensively in Washington, I say on the Hill, for at least 3 months. Hopefully we can get some support there. But whatever, even with little money, theoretically, I can do everything that needs to be done. And if it works, then the hearings will take place sometime probably in March. There's no question we can deliver the witnesses, not an iota of doubt there. And these witnesses will be every bit as powerful as the witnesses of the citizen hearing, many of which will be the same. And the media will do its thing, and that'll be that. We anticipate that there'll literally be a media frenzy generated by these hearings that will force the president to cut a deal with the military intelligence groups and make the announcement. That is the game plan. But key to it is the public participation. We're going to ask them to take a couple of minutes to send a tweet and an email. A couple of tweets, a couple of emails, obviously, because there's three representatives for every American. And if the public's willing to take those few minutes, it's going to be hard for them to ignore. And then, if I get the meetings, in other words, for those members who are, working more on behalf of their constituents and the American people than they are on their own self-interest, agree to meet, whether it's a high-level staff or the member themselves, and I'm allowed to get in front of them and essentially make the case. Certainly accompanied by either they or their staff reviewing some of the CHD, the Citizen Hearing Disclosure content. I think that we can very much persuade some of these members to act. And there are a couple of reasons why they will, I think, respond. One is that the fact is that the hearing is a very, very safe process for them. We're not asking them to come forward and make some pronouncement about their beliefs on the ET issue. All we're asking them to do is to call a hearing for the committee that they sit on and allow the witnesses to come in and testify under oath, and they just sit there and listen. And they can ask the odd question if they want to. So they're not being asked to join up. They're simply being asked to do their job, and they'll be doing it as a committee, and which means that there's 15, 20 of them in some cases. So it's not like anyone will be singled out by the media to be ridiculed in the standard fashion that the truth embargo allows. So it's really not difficult for them, or particularly that risky. a little bit more risky for the committee chair, I suppose, that has to sign off on it. And secondly, and this is, definitely a factor, and one of the reasons that we're making this move is that for a whole lot of reasons, the U.S. Congress right now is probably at its nadir. It's as bad as it's ever been. I mean, there are a lot of people saying it's the worst Congress in history. Its approval ratings are the worst that have ever been recorded. It's the subject of ongoing daily jokes by the usual satirists and talk show hosts, comedians. I mean, who wants to go to work every day for a company or an institution that's getting pounded like that? And more importantly, who wants to have to go out and campaign relentlessly to raise millions of dollars so they can get reelected to that same place? I mean, this is not good for any of them. So I think that we've got a strong case to make that they've got nowhere to go but up.
Right.
And that the way up, really, and it's not hard to see this, well, it's going to require them to, one, take on a major issue that has impact. Globally would be even better, which this does. And it needs to be an issue that is clearly nonpartisan, so that there's very little likelihood that the hearings and the engagement by Congress will decay, as it often does, into a hyper-partisan blatherfest, which just insults everyone's intelligence and just makes people hate them more. Well, this issue is it. I mean, it's completely nonpartisan, and it's profoundly important. So this is your way up, guys and gals. You hold these hearings. Watch how fast your approval ratings go up. So this is part of the timing, and why we're doing it. It's very notable that for whatever reason, and I'm bemused by this. I think it may just be a coincidence, but it may not be. The House Space Science and Technology Committee on the 4th of December held a 1.5-hour hearing for 3 witnesses to testify about astrobiology and kind of the latest efforts to assess and determine our ability to identify life outside the planet, really meaning microbial life, nice, safe little microbes. The most important probably testimony at this hearing was that one of the astrobiologists, Dr. Sarah Sager, she brought into play the latest planetary census material. She way understated the life planets, potential life planets that are out there.
All right, I'm going to end it right there. The link will be available so you can listen to the whole thing, because we're going to get to the end of the show here. There's another 25 minutes left to the interview. Pretty good so far, very informative. He gets in really discussing in detail everything that's going on with the organization, so that's good. Now you know what's going on. Check out the full interview. Let's jump over to this next story here. So get ready to wrap things up here for today. This says, do cosmic rays evolve consciousness and transform DNA? Well, they certainly did to the members of the Fantastic Four. So what's going to happen with all this cosmic wind we've got blowing our way? 25 years ago in 1987, something happened at the World Fair, at the World Felt. The first globally synchronized meditation, commonly known as the first harmonic convergence, took place. Tens of thousands of people have gathered around the world at sacred sites around the planet to coordinate their intention. What intention? Jose Arguelles, who initiated the meditation, put it this way. Jose goes on to say, there comes a point when things have to change. A vibrational signal was sent out where the signal was coming from, whether it was coming from our genetic coding, whether it was coming from Earth, whether it was coming from outer space, or whether it was coming from all of those. The signal went out and people responded to a signal. It is very much when like a species gets a signal to change the direction of its migration patterns. It was from that year on that human beings began to open up more than ever before. Even though the status quo resisted these new ideas, more and more people began seeing through the old paradigm of war, environmental destruction, poverty, slavery, and materialism, and instead opened their eyes and minds to a more holistic worldview. People began questioning the many structures of society, and suppressed information began to resurface and become available to the masses. Ever since 1987, human consciousness has experienced a notable acceleration. Now, what is this all about? And why 26 years ago? Is this some new space age speculative talk? As much as the world change is not a concept that needs to be backed up by science to be recognized as important, interesting studies have shown that this evolutionary movement isn't just a coincidence or a simple initiative of a few individuals. The whole cosmos seems to be in. Alright, now we're going to get into here where it gets into discovery. It says these effects of cosmic rays in our own genetics has led to mutations within the body, within the mind, the brain, and has already altered our perception of reality. The correspondence between the ancient cosmic ray levels and sudden evolutionary leaps in technology and art are facts. Are you aware that the shift in human consciousness is occurring even as you read these words? That employs celestial triggers, such as supernovas and Earth's alignment and galactic center to trigger the evolution of our species. Everyone has a double helix DNA. What we are finding is that there are other helixes that are being formed. In the double helix, there are two strands of DNA coiled into a spiral. It is my understanding that we will be developing 12 helixes. During this time, which seems to have started maybe 5 to 20 years ago, we have been mutating. This is the scientific explanation. It's a mutation of our species into something for which the end result is not yet known. I'm working with 3 children right now who have 3 DNA helixes. Some adults I have tested actually do have another DNA helix forming. Some are even getting their third. These people are going through a lot of major shifts in their consciousness and physical bodies because it is all one. In my opinion, the Earth and everyone here is raising their vibration. A lot of old paradigms can no longer exist, yet are fighting to be maintained, but there is no doubt that this is changing. Those of us who chose to live at this time are the forerunners of a new species. Very fascinating. So, I think we've seen the signs around us to know that things are changing. Consciousness is changing. The gentleman who you heard his name before, Jose Arguelles, that was involved with the whole harmonic convergence, he is the same gentleman who put together the dream spell. So at the beginning of the show, when I read that dream spell about the change, he's that guy. He saw that the Mayan calendar needed some corrections and adjustments to it. He has a history and with those amongst the Mayan community and down there in Mexico who recognize him as someone important to continuing on the cycle here, and that he was going to take the old wisdom and apply new wisdom to it. So that is what that is about. There's a connection with all of this. He was looking at the cosmic aspect of what is going on in space, and that's pretty much what the Mayan calendar is all about. It's not always talked that way, but certainly in the efforts and what he brought forward, that's where he took that conversation. All right, let's listen to this message here. This is Hilarion. This is a message from not long ago.
Hilarion's Weekly Message 2013.
December 1st to 7th, 2013, by Marlene Swetleshoff.
Hilarion.
Beloved ones, there are mighty signs in the heavens that humankind can no longer ignore or deny. Something big is taking place that involves not only the planet Earth but the entire cosmos. You are the conduits who are now taking on an even greater role of keeping the Earth in balance. This is a most important function of your presence here on Earth. Daily ground your roots into the crystalline diamond core of Mother Earth, and as you feel the Earth's energies rising upwards through your column of light, connect into the great diamond in the great central sun. This intention will bring the energies of the higher dimensions into the Earth's core and spread out in concentric circles throughout the planet through each of you. There is no place upon and within the Earth that will not be touched by these energies. Transformation in all systems is now a moment-by-moment occurrence. No one knows what will happen next, for your planet is traversing the unknown and there is nothing to do but go with it. It is both exciting and exhilarating and rather frightening at the same time. By carefully watching the signs in the heavens and those upon the earth, you can keep moving forward in faith and trust that all is well and according to the divine plan for all life in the cosmos. There is earth changes taking place which are quite startling in their suddenness, and many that are taking place beneath the oceans of your world that you are not aware of. The last vestiges of old programs and belief systems are insisting that you pay attention to them, and it behooves each of you to be steadfast in your determination to stand in your light and your truth and go the distance. Many mind-boggling occurrences are about to unfold, and it is necessary to stay connected within your divine heart space as much as possible. Be flexible in your expectations at the start of each day and takes what comes with equanimity. The unseen realms are making their appearance with greater frequency and are aligning in proximity at the edges of the end of one dimension and the beginning of another. You are the masters of alchemy and can now create the world of your deepest heart's desires. There will be many opportunities to join together in unity to focus on that which is needed in specific moments of time upon the surface of the planet. Know that as you connect with the rainbow portal of light as you come to this website, you are being activated to higher and higher levels of consciousness. It is a continuing work in progress for each and all. The raising of your frequency level is absolutely essential each day if you want to be able to cope with all that manifests upon the surface of your planet and in your daily lives. Work together and help each other as you become aware of the need to do so. Love comes calling in its many facets and wonders. The people that you are meant to meet appear as if by magic. Projects that have been put on hold suddenly complete themselves in complete grace and astounding ease. Life takes on the magical quality of synchronicity, and you will find yourselves filled with enthusiasm to create new projects and tasks. You will be raising the bar on the standards needed to walk this earth as a divine being, fully expressing your kinship with the Creator of all. You can access greater information and knowledge from the crystalline grid than was ever possible before. Tuning into the great crystals that reside in and on the planet will help align you to the hidden treasures that have been hidden within you. Embrace these gifts with zest and relish as they come to your awareness, for it is not only that which is not love within you that needs contemplation, release, and reflection, but also the celebration of that which comes to remind you of your magnificence. You begin now to experience your own greatness as the blockages to this knowledge are lifted in the upraised frequencies. Until next week. I am Hilarion.
Alright, nice message. Nice message indeed. The angel message today, our little angel here, says, get back your sense of perspective by communing with nature. Meditate, walk, do yoga, or just sit in the garden without noise or chatter. Alright, good idea. Get back to nature. Get back out there and commune. That's what we need to do. So over the weekend, let's spend some time communing with nature. Alright? Communing with nature. That way we could be in tune with what's going on around us. Alright, meditation time. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. Exhale again. As you look around in the world around you, I want you to recognize the change that is taking place. Look at the world as you know it to be. Think about all the ways in which you have seen and experienced the world over your time of life here on this planet. And now look closely and notice how these times are different. How there's been energetic shifts that have changed and helped to evolve things along in different ways than they have. And as we recognize these changes, we realize that there is a great change upon us, a great transformation. And that as we look closely with the heart, as we look closely through and past the veil of the physical realms, we realize the transformation that is taking place. Imagine looking up at the sun and drawing down the energy from the sun as it fills your body with light. Knowing that light is information, you understand that every moment that this light shines into your being, you are being filled with new information. codes from the universe. And you realize that all of this coding is meant to change and evolve who you are, who we are, who the planet is. And as we allow and accept these changes into our lives, we find that the changes happen smoothly. We see others who are having challenges with some of these transformations and changes going on. So we simply give them a reassuring look, send them some confidence, and as we do so, they find that their way of looking at the energies becomes simpler, easier. And we realize that by inspiring each other, we can look at this energy, look at this change in a whole new way. And understand that this is what we are here for. To be part of this evolutionary process. So just imagine yourself filling with the light and the love of change. Imagine yourself changing for the better, evolving into a newer version of yourself, while at the same time finding that the newer version is actually the older version of you that has been waiting for you for a long time to catch up. So as you catch up with who you are destined to be, and you find yourself standing in that change, you feel empowered and strong, energized and refreshed. So let's imagine as we go forth over the course of this weekend, just to keep encouraging each other. Encouraging each other to go through these changes, to accept the changes as the smooth operation of the universe moves on through us. And let's just imagine sending out love into the world as we go forth over the course of this day and into the weekend. So let's bring our conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3 as our subconscious mind continues on its journey of love. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Go ahead and take a deep breath. Exhale. And open your eyes. That's it, my friends. That's our show for today. That's it for the week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your life. Enjoy what you do. Life's changing every day. Next week we'll have some more challenges, more things to deal with, but we're not there yet. So just enjoy your time today and the people you're with. I'll be back next week with more news and information. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.